Hey, we've got two 1945 D18's to look at today, and they are radically different from each other. One of them is a Sitka top with a T-bar, and the other one is a red spruce top with an ebony bar. So that makes three 1945 D18's that I have for review. The other one, which has already been reviewed, we're going to look at it again though, is a Sitka Ebony. Yes, that's correct. Sitka Ebony, Sitka T, red spruce Ebony, and then the one that we don't have yet, it would be a red spruce T, and eventually we're going to have them. But before we get started on the review, I want to show you the cases here. These are the original cases. I'm pretty sure. And man, look at these things. Okay, this one's not too bad. This has got the regular kind of latch as you're used to. But this thing, let me tell you, you got to be careful with this thing. It's got this little peg on it like this. And you have to get this down there and make sure you've got that latch on that peg. Man, that's hairy. And then it's got this deal where you push it sideways and it opens this way. It does not, yeah, the lid just opens, you see. There's nothing pivoting like this one. This one pivots. This is a lot more modern-ish case, but they're both 1945, and what I thought was interesting, I assume they are, they look original anyways, the difference in the location of the handles. This one's clear back here in the middle, and this one's up here in the front. This one balances better, you know. This guitar is more balanced. This one's got that typical, you know, butt-heavy hang. So, but anyway, there's the cases. And if you ever bought one of the early D18 1937 Authentics, it came with a modern case that it had this this leather-looking sort of thing. This is what it actually really looks like right here. This is it right here. And the other one, it's got a smooth surface to it, and it's got an arch top. So this might not be the original case. This might be something else, but it is definitely an old case. People who are more knowledgeable about cases can tell me something about this one. Man, you got the cases, you got the tuners. I'm not an expert in all of that stuff. I know the guitars pretty well, but when it comes to the tuners, you know, and all that, golly, there's a lot of variations on that. The cases too. I'm just not that interested in cases because you can't play the case, you know, but they're interesting over there. So I'm going to go get them out of the case. We're going to take a look at them. We're going to evaluate them here. We're going to stick the camera inside and take a look at them. I'll go up and get the other one. We'll stick a camera inside of it too, so we can get a fresh look at the braces on it too. So let me go get one. All right, we got the Sitka top version here. This is what it looks like right here. I know it's Sitka because it's brownish. It's got even grain lines on here. There's nothing going on. It just looks like Sitka. You know, you get to where you can look at these things and you can tell. When you see the other one, the red spruce top next to this one, you would definitely see a color, and I will show you some grain things. And there's a lot of discussion that you can't tell from the grain and that kind of thing. But when you look at a top like this is not red spruce. It's just all of the characteristics here, where it's got very dark lines in here. They're very even. Sitka is a coastal wood, so it generally, especially in 1945, it's you know, you got the first cut of the woods. It's just a generally very even kind of grain. It's got some tight grain over here on the edges, but it doesn't go immediately into it. It goes tighter, 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 and it grades into it, and then it holds a tight grain for a long time over here. So this was a very, very long period of not much growth. This was faster growth, and there's a lot of discussion about that, is whether the grain lines even really mean there was growth going on and that kind of thing. So whatever. This is a Sitka top. We do know that. And it has a T-bar truss rod in it. Get a magnet. And there, I mean, you very clearly stick into that. The tuners are these. and they're horrible tuners. These tuners are really, really, really stiff. You also notice that being 1945, this does not have grommets in the headstock. Neither does the other one. Take a good look at the head decal there. The neck is a big chunky V shape. This one is a little bit more V than the other one. And I've been playing it back and forth, and this neck is a lot more comfortable for me because of that V. This is a pretty sharp V. Let me get a piece of solder. I got a piece right here. Let's just take a quick solder tracing of this, and I'll hold it up to the light, and I'll show you how V-ish it is. I'm going to go to the 3rd fret. I'm going to wrap this solder around here. That. Shut on there nice and tight. And there's the shape of it. And you can see this V right here. And you're going to see that the other one, it's not quite that much. But man, the neck's great on this. It's got a little bit of wear here where you've had your thumb. But not bad. I mean, for a 1945, back is beautiful. Everything looks great. The saddle is really good on this one. It's just about what I would consider a perfect saddle height. And let's measure it and see what it is. I'm not sure if the bridge is original. Again, you know, it's one of those things where it looks good. It's a little bit on the fat side. 45, you know, there's stuff going on. And so I'm not sure. If it's not original, it looks good. It doesn't look shaved. It doesn't look oversized or anything like that. It looks pretty good to me. Like I said, it could be a little bit fat. But so from the front, we have 118. So just under 120 thousandths of an inch. You can't do it from the pin. The pins are in the way. And 118. Very even saddle. Perfect saddle. I mean, if it was 5 thousandths of an inch higher, it'd still be okay. But man, I'm not complaining about that. I feel like the action on this guitar is just a little bit high, but I have not measured it. So let's take a measure and see what we got. Here's a 90 thousandths of an inch, and I'd like to see 93. And yeah, it's high. So I bet it's 100 and something. Here's 102. So you've got about 103 thousandths of an inch there at the 12th fret, which is a little high. In fact, it's about 10 thousandths of an inch higher than I would like for it to be personally. And I would like for the A to be right at 90, and it's just a little high, and the D is a little bit high. And that's pretty consistent with the way it felt to me. It was like, it's playable, and it's okay, but it's not quite slinky, you know? Not quite perfect. I've got enough room to drop it just a little bit. This should be 84 thousandths of an inch, and the G is probably about 87. The B is a little bit high, and the high E is at 84. So I would like for that whole action to drop just a little bit. Definitely not worth doing a neck reset. The nut height looks great. There's nothing going on there. Neck relief. Neck relief is a little bit more than I would like. Let's get a capo out and measure it and see. Put a capo on the 1st fret here. Bring the camera down, make sure you can see this. Put a capo on the 1st fret. Still got that nasty cough. Let's take 8 thousandths of an inch. If it's below 8, it's okay. If it's above 8, it's a little bit too much. I'm not saying I'm going to do anything about it. I'm just checking, okay? So here's 6th fret. We're clearing 8 thousandths of an inch by quite a bit. So part of the feel might be for me too much relief. 12 thousandths. 12 is clearing. So here's 14. 6, 14 is still clearing, so probably 16 thousandths of an inch, which is about 10 thousandths of an inch more than I would like for the relief to be. All right, so let's take a look at the neck. Anyway, I think that's where the feel is coming from for me. 16 thousandths of an inch of neck relief. It creates a dip in the middle of the neck. And when I get up out there, I felt like I was having to push harder than I was used to. That feel is probably coming from the relief more than it is the action. Let's see what the fingerboard looks like. Here's the long scale. We're going to measure the actual fingerboard this way. And yeah, quite a bit of relief here. Let's see if I can get this on the camera for you. Pretty sure I can. I think you can see that right there. Okay. And we'll measure it and see if it's less or more than 16 thousandths. So I can't fix this with just frets. If I'm gonna fix this, I probably have to refret for 7 frets and either do a compression neck reset or curve the fingerboard back just a little bit. And again, a lot of times you can work with just the first 2 or 3 frets and shape that back just a little bit and pick things up pretty good. So let's get some feeler gauges out here. Let's get 16, 18, 14, and I know it's at least 16. So I'm gonna hold on to this. I'm gonna go to the 6th fret here, and 18 does not go. That's good. 16 is not going either. That's good. Still in here, right? Yeah. 16 is not going. 14 is just going. 14 is just going. So it probably has 12 thousandths of an inch. No, 14. 14 is going pretty nicely right there. It's got 14 thousandths of an inch of true neck relief, which is a little too much. A little too much. Not saying I'm going to necessarily do anything about it. I'm just pointing it out here. Is that when I played this guitar, I thought, yeah, it feels a little bit stiff. So let's see what the frets measure out to be. See if I'm going to refret it or not. 40 thousandths. That's pretty good. 38. 45. Yeah, 45. Is it really 38 up here? Yeah, 35. So the frets are actually higher up on the front end. You know, by the time I took care of that neck relief, you would it'll drop the action, and the action will probably be really good and will have less neck relief. So to make this guitar play what I like for a guitar to play, I would do some fret work on it. I really hesitate on a 1945 D18. I really hesitate to go sanding the fingerboard down. That's just not my favorite option to do. Let's see how stiff this neck is here. I'm going to hold it here. I'm going to push down here on the fingerboard at the nut, not the headstock. And yeah, it's flexing a little bit. It's a T-bar, so it should be pretty stiff, but some compression frets in the middle of the neck might work wonders on this guitar. So that's the only problem I see with it. The rest of it's really nice. Let's see if the bridge is stuck on. Looks like it is. 3 thousandths of an inch. Bridge is on real nice. No problems there. Alright, take a look inside of it. Alright, last thing to look at is nut spacing. And I almost guarantee that the E and the A are going to be pretty close together here. Let's take a look. Let's get the actual measurement here. When I set mine, I generally set it 0.257. So let's see what we have here just for curiosity. So edge to edge is 0.235. So it's 20 thousandths of an inch less than I normally set one. 0.235. This one's 250. This one's 255. This one is 285. And this one is 280. So just like I thought, the string spacing up here at the nut is just all over the board. 235 to 280. I mean, that's a lot, you know. 50 thousandths of an inch, you know. Right? Yeah. Nearly 50 thousandths of an inch. Man, that's more. When I was talking about the bridge spacing, the pin spacing down here, I was looking at 40 thousandths of an inch total, you know, across the thing. And you're looking at 50 thousandths of an inch between a pair of strings here. So, I mean, no wonder it feels funny, you know. It's that much difference here. That's a lot. I mean, that's a whole low E string. To make it play better, to make it play really good and play really slinky to where I would want to play the thing, I would be working on that neck relief, and I would probably just make a new nut for this thing. This is the original ivory nut, and the guy hates to just take it off and put it in the case, but yeah, there's no shim or anything under it. It's definitely ivory. It's got the striations in it. People asking me, how do you know it's ivory? If you look at it real closer, you can see that the striations, like a layer of cake. You know, you got a cake layer like this. You can see that their bone is very consistent, doesn't have that sort of thing. And the color of it is that yellowish color. Plus, they would have been using ivory back then, and it looks to me like the original nut. I guess when I take the strings off, I'm going to see if it's glued on or not. If it's not glued on, then it's a no-brainer. I'll make a new nut, and we'll put this in a plastic bag and put it in the case for posterity. And, you know, I'll think about whether or not I want to do some compression frets on this or not. I might just leave it alone because not everybody is picky about the playability of the guitar as I am. The originality might be worth something because it does look pretty original. It does look pretty original. I'll be playing these in just a minute too. So let's get the other one out. All right, here's our other 1945. This one is the red spruce top. I think you can very clearly see the color of the top is different. It's much more yellowish. And you look at it and you just think, you know, it looks like a pre-war 30s. You know, looks, you know, got that look to it. If you look up here, let's find some of those grain lines that I'm talking about. Where are you guys? Here they are. Look at this section right here where my finger is. And you can see how those grain lines come across here, and they go very quickly to a whole bunch of really super tight grain. Red spruce top, so it grows in the, you know, New York. It grows in the eastern United States, as opposed to the Sitka coastal country, and the weather conditions change a lot more rapidly. Seems to be reflected in the woods. But anyway, when I see, I just don't see that kind of rapid tight grain on Sitka tops, and I don't see any silking in the medullary rays going in here. The rays themselves are much lighter than that Sitka top was. You know, that had a really dark rays in it. It's just, I look at it, it looks like red spruce. Sounds like red spruce too. I played it. It sounds like red spruce. It's got a characteristic sound. So let's critique this guitar. Here's the tuners. That's what they look like. I don't know if they're original or not. They look like this. We can discuss tuners. I don't really care. They don't have the grommets. So I know, golly, I know they're not Waverleys, you know. I'm going to say the original tuners, everything looks original about them. At least they look authentically old. They've got the cheap plastic buttons on them. No grommets in the headstock because they're saving metal during the wartime. The shafts are straight. They're not, tapered in, which I can't stand straight shafts, but there they are. So they look good to me. These work better than the other ones did. So, all right, let's take a look at the nut while we're here and see what we get on this one. I will say that this guitar has a much lower action. Plays good for me, except for some problems it's got. So let's see what we got here. 230, 250, 265, 285, and 270. So once again, nut spacing is all over the board. The biggest problem with this guitar as far as playing goes is that the frets are very, very flat and low. Let's get up here and take a look at some of these frets. Look at these right here. Watch the shadow of the string as it comes down on that fret. Let's go to this string. I think you see the G string pretty good on the camera. See that shadow goes straight across the fret. There's no crown whatsoever on these frets right here. Completely, absolutely flat. Let's see if we can see this shadow, because I can see it here in the camera on the fingerboard. Watch it come down on the fret. And that shadow goes straight across. So these frets are very flat, and they're also very low. It's been dressed at some point, and they didn't have enough fret to crown. Most people don't even crown frets anyways, which I just absolutely don't understand that. So many people just go in there and file them down, and that's it, and then they call it good. You got to have that crown, because when you go to fret this, it just slides off across the top of that. I bet these are, wouldn't surprise me if they're less than 30 thousandths of an inch. Look at that. 22 thousandths of an inch, yeah. I'm not surprised. Just like almost no fret on there at all. I could not make a clean note when I was playing it. I'd fret it, and there's just, you're pressing clear to the fingerboard, and that is still, that note's just sliding back and forth across the fret. So the frets are not good at all on this guitar. So, fret job for sure. Let's see what the relief looks like. Relief looks great. Which is funny. This is the Ebony truss rod. This is an Ebony truss rod. I would have expected this one to have the neck bow and the T-bar to be straight. But here's your magnet. And it's not sticking, boys and girls. So, Ebony truss rod on that one. Ebony truss rod. Huh. So, it needs frets, but the neck relief is great. All right, here's the biggest problem on this guitar right here. The saddle height. My gosh. Oh, yeah, and the bridge is cracking in between the pins just a little bit. So, wow. Man, look at that saddle height. That's horrible. I mean, I would never send a guitar home like that. I hope I wouldn't. Not a vintage guitar. Not a vintage guitar where you've done a neck reset on it. And that saddle is just horrible. 200 thousandths of an inch. I want it to be 125. 180. And over here, 185. So it's just way too high, and you can see it leaning because it's been strung up for a little bit. You can see that saddle leaning forward, and man, the break angle right here is so steep. It's just, I had a video on that, on the break angles and saddle heights, and what it's doing is just grabbing the top of that saddle and it's just torquing that sucker forward. That is the first course of action. Now the problem is the action is low on this guitar, so I can't drop the saddle. I mean, I can't raise the saddle to raise the action. This guitar needs a reverse neck reset. The neck has been overset, so it's back too far, the saddle's too high, the action's too low. It plays beautifully because of that low action, but not really because you can't get a clean note. Running the straight edge down here, it ought to just kiss the top of the bridge. And I got to show you this. Let's go over here where you can see it. God is clearing that bridge by 100,000ths of an inch. Let's get it down there and see if you can see that. Oh, I think we got it. Under tension, under string tension, the straight edge should just kiss the top of the bridge. When it's not under tension, it'll clear it by a little bit. But when it's under string tension, so that neck is badly overset. And another way to check this is, again, I have videos on all this, but take the straight edge and lay it down the top of the guitar, and it ought to just clear the top of the fingerboard, and the top of the fingerboard is below this straight edge here. So that tells me what the fingerboard or what the neck is doing in relation to the straight edge. Here's the top plane, the straight edge. Top of the fingerboard ought to just be at the bottom of this, usually. Some of that depends upon the equity, but it's a good second guess. So there's just no question here that this action is low. That saddle height is way too tall, way too tall. So it needs a reverse neck reset, take the neck off, and re-angle it forward. And the way I'm going to do that on this vintage guitar, I'm not going to take any material off of the top right here, which I might do if it was the 70s or something. But I'm going to shim underneath it, and I'm going to make a shim to pull the heel out like this. And it's going to bring it down. And I'll tell you exactly how much in just a second. Let's see what this action is. I would not be surprised if this is 76,000ths of an inch. I'd like to see 93, and I would not be surprised 78,000ths of an inch. So that's lower than I run my Telecaster. I run my Telecasters at about 80 to 84,000ths of an inch. 80 is all right, you know. So literally, it's a little bit lower than I run my Telecaster. Yeah, not going to work. Needs a reverse neck reset. It needs new frets. Probably, you know, I would just do them all. A lot of times I just go to 15 or so, but I would just do them all. Man, these two frets up here at the 14th and 15th are horrible. Those are so flat. I don't think there's any fret left. 20,000ths of an inch. I mean, all right. So it's got a little bit of a crack happening right here between the bridge pins. You can see that. It's not too bad. I've caught it. I'll be able to glue it. And I'm almost certain a lot of that is happening because of the excess torque on the top of the saddle. So I'm going to play it on the video, and then I'm de-stringing it. That scares me to death. The rest of the guitars, let's see what it looks like. Shiny. I don't think it's been oversprayed. The finish looks pretty good. It's probably been polished. It's got a lot of appropriate cracks. The finish does not look thick. You would run it under a black light and make sure everything in the back looks good. Everything looks nice on it. No cracks, no bashes or dings or anything. The neck on this one is thick, but it's a little bit more rounded right up in here. And when I was playing it, it was not as comfortable. I liked this guitar better. I liked the sound better, but it was not as comfortable to play because of that rounded neck. I don't know. I don't think we're going to be able to tell anything by putting this piece of solder back on here, but let's see. Yeah, what it's got here, I can see this. I can't get the camera in here, but what I can see is it's actually got a little bit more V right here on this slope, but it curves more right here. The other one, the V came right up to the edge of the fingerboard, and this one comes up and makes a little bit of a curve right here. It's a lot like my D18 1937A, where I reshaved the neck, and I've commented on it. I said, I think it needs a little bit more V to it because it feels like this neck. And it's okay, you know, I mean, you can play it, but it's not quite perfect. But I did like the sound of this guitar a lot. So some divots up here on the fingerboard, and I'm sure that's because of having these ridiculously low frets, and somebody had fingernails, which I don't have, and they're, you know, clamping in right there. Divots do not bother me one bit. I like divots a little bit because they kind of give you the feel of a taller fret. And you're playing on top of the frets anyways. You should not be pressing down to the fingerboard. So divots just really don't bother me. It's almost like a Malmsteen Stratocaster, you know, with the scoops in between. You can do some stuff. I mean, they've got a nice bite to it. So we're looking over here at the fingerboard, and I don't see any cracks going on here. I didn't see any cracks on the inside, but I will take another look here. We're looking here at the edge of the fingerboard. Get that light out of the way right there. And no cracks going on here, no distortion. There's a little bit of glue here from the previous necklace set, which not a big deal. I mean, you know, I have glue too. You can see, I can just see his holes right here. Just see, not even sure if they're going to show up on the camera. Just barely see a hole right there. And right there, see that little mark? That's probably from the hole. So, you know, I know this neck has been reshot and it's been overshot. So that's definitely something I'm gonna take care of very quickly on this one. Oh, this guitar is light. I'll weigh them. I'll put the weights up at the end of this video. The three 1945s that I have. This guitar's got a little bit of a cupping here on the pickguard. I'm not terribly worried about it. Let's see if we can see it on the video. Yeah, I'm not sure. We do a straight edge. There's a straight edge. This will work. Not the world's straightest straight edge, but there you go. See that cupping? That's for pickguard shrinkage. You can see it right there for sure. And you can see it's touching here, touching there, and touching there. And got quite a bit of a dip in the middle there. If I was really worried about it, I might loosen that pickguard up. And if the pickguard was in any form or matter of wanting to come up on its own, I would definitely loosen it up and relieve that tension. But one has to be a little careful here about mucking around with these things. You know, if I was to relieve that pressure there, I'm going to crack the original finish, and somebody might object to that. That actually looks like a crack right there. So you got to make an executive decision here about whether you're going to do what's best for the guitar or what's best for the originality. Yeah, it's definitely cracked right there. Definitely cracking along the pickguard here. Right here. See if we can get it. Right there. I think you ought to be able to see that. And of course, the thing to do anytime you suspect a crack is to get your naphtha. This stuff, the Gugon, works good because this is you just run some of that down that crack. Don't leave it on there forever because it will eventually eat the finish up, but not immediately. Clean that up. Grab the mirror. Take a look. Did it go through? Pickguard. There you go. That didn't go through. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. Well, since it didn't go through, I think the responsible thing to do is to loosen the pickguard up and relieve that pressure before it cracks. You know, it might not ever crack, and I talked to Jim Baggett about the cracks on the 1942 D18 that are along the fingerboard. And he said, well, might stay like that forever. And it might not. And so, you know, we both hesitated to just throw a brace in there. But we talked about what might be done. And it's just one of those things where it's a judgment call. Are you going to throw a brace in there? A very light brace? If you throw a brace in there, will it do what you want it to do? You know, will it make any difference? Is it going to continue to get worse? You just have to kind of make an executive call on some of these vintage guitar repairs like this. You don't want to go destroying the originality of it, and you don't want it to get worse. Because obviously you would like to stop a crack before it happens. The reason I just did this is I'm going to see if there's any cracks under the fingerboard there. And that's really the best way to do it, even though I was looking at it and I didn't see anything. Yeah, that looks great. Nothing going on. That's good, you know. Good. No fingerboard cracks, and this has not gone through. And I would like to prevent it from going through. So I'm probably going to loosen that up. Let's see. 3,007 inches. Is it going to participate? Yeah, see, looky here. This is what I wanted to see. And you can see the feeler gauge is going under very easily. I didn't even push on it. So the finish is already broken here. And you can see it going under. You can see it through the pickguard, which is kind of cool. So I don't think there's really anything to be lost by going ahead and loosening this up, because the finish is already broken pretty much all the way around this pickguard. And we're going to save it from further damage. So I think my inclination is going to be to go ahead and take that feeler gauge and work it under there very carefully. Pop that pickguard. And what I will probably do is not even pop it the whole way. In other words, I'm not even probably going to take the pickguard off. I would just relieve the pressure on the edges, and I will leave the center glued, a little small spot in the center here, so the pickguard doesn't shift around or go anywhere. And then leave it like that for a little bit, and get some glue, some of that really weak Titebond hide glue, which is a super weak glue. If anything shifts, the glue will crack and let go. So it's not aggressive. It's not like this is. And put a small smear in there and clamp it back down, because there's going to be wood grains left onto the pickguard there, and that'll glue back to the wood, and it'll just be a very weak glue. We're not using sticky paper or anything, which is what you would normally do. We don't want to introduce sticky paper to a 1945. So, but a thin smear of that hide glue in there, and then clap it back down, giving the top a chance to pop up. Pickguard doesn't shift. Everything will go right back down where it was, and we should be fine, because the finish line is already broken, and that's what I was worried about. So I didn't want to go in there and break the sacred finish line, even though that's what needs to be done. So I'm pretty sure we're going to do that. So on this guitar, we're going to do what I'm going to do. Owner lets me do it, which of course she's going to want me to do. But we're going to do frets. We're going to do a reverse neck reset. That's going to take care of the saddle here. And then I will fix these holes in the bridge before they get any worse, these cracks. They already shut up pretty good. So that just confirms to me that a lot of the problem is too much tension on that thing. And those cracks are not bad at all. So what the bridge plate looked like, you know, I only saw it on video, and I saw it very earlier, but now what I look at, yeah, the string ball ends on this, which I'm sure you've already noticed, the string ball ends are all sitting sideways. So whoever strung this up, didn't really understand how to string a slotted bridge. Those are so consistently off to the side. I mean, I wonder if he did that intentionally or something, but those two are good. The bridge plate looks pretty good. Otherwise, I don't see any cracks in it. It definitely looks original. It's thin. You can see the saw marks on it. And it definitely looks original. The braces on this guitar, yeah, those are what I think of as tapered bracing. They go very evenly from the X brace. They go very evenly down to the end. They don't get real super thin down here, you know. I think they could be thinner. Like if I was building a tapered brace, I'd go a little bit thinner. But for Martin, you know, those look like the, what's the word I want for a model? Those look to me like the standard for a tapered brace guitar. I definitely like those. Like I said, playing this guitar was, I like the sound of this one better. We're gonna go back in the house and hook up the good video camera, and I'm gonna play this one and that one and the other one, and we'll get all three of these 1945 D18s, which has been a fascinating experience for me. Looking at the variations of a single year in 1945. So it's just crazy. You know, you order a 1945 D18 back in 1945, you know, you just got back from World War II, and you're going to celebrate by ordering yourself a new D18, and you and your buddy both order one, and his comes out with a Sitka T-bar, and yours comes out with the red spruce Ebony. The question I have is, you know, did you even notice back then? Did you notice the difference? Did you know what the differences were? Or did you just kind of order a D18 and that's what you got? Or did you even know that? I mean, did you just know it was a Martin guitar, you know? I don't know. We know so much more stuff these days because of the internet and the forums and the sharing and all that kind of thing. The ability to compare notes, and I just know that, like, when I started working on guitars in when I started, 90s, about 95 or so, I didn't have access to this kind of information. And before that, in the 80s, when I was playing guitar, not really working on it, but I was reading about them, the only information I had was Frets magazine, Pickin' magazine. I did not really have access to people who knew stuff. You know, John Arnold, you know, I didn't have access to him. I didn't have access to Jim Baggett. I didn't have access to people who actually knew stuff. And furthermore, you had access to people who thought they knew stuff and they sounded like they knew stuff and they really didn't. And I definitely knew people like that. You know, so-called experts who really weren't quite right. I definitely remember people like that. I know when I bought my 1973 D28, I got it in 1979, and I asked around, you know, I was looking for a D28, and back then you looked in the newspaper, and there was one in there, and so I didn't have the money, so I sold the motorcycle, I saved some money, I clipped the ad out and put it in my wallet. And about a month after I found it, I got enough money. So I called him up, and he still had it. And in fact, I got out there, and he had a ton of guitars, including a D45, which he had just bought. And I knew nothing about him right then. I mean, was that a pre-war D45? 1979. You know, I don't know if Man Lim Brothers had a reissue then. I don't know. Let me think. 75, they would have had. I've worked on some 75 D45s, so you could have had some sort of D45, but I don't know what it was. And I didn't know a thing about Brazilian rosewood. I didn't know nothing about nothing. And all I said was, yeah, I can afford this one. And he said, well, I've got some better ones or some older ones or whatever. And, you know, they were another $100. And we didn't know nothing about Brazilian rosewood. I didn't. I guess those guys did, but they knew something about it, but I just don't think we knew as much as we know now. So anyway, it's just fascinating to me that you could have bought in 1945 a D18, and you could have gotten one of four radically different guitars. And you'll hear the difference when I get in there and start playing them. I think you will hear the Sitka. I think you will hear the Ebony truss rod. I think you will hear all the differences in these things. I got polishing compound all over these things, and so I thought I would do that. So anyway, really interesting stuff, which I honestly did not know until we started doing this. I knew there were differences, but I didn't know the details and how many of them there were and what exactly the details were and that kind of thing. But we've been looking at 1953 D18's too. Gosh, that's another whole can of worms. You got mystery tops, you got some ebony truss rods in there, you got Sitka, you got German tops. You've got, I think, 6 or 8 combinations of 1953 D18's. Wow. The other thing I noticed about this neck is it's on pretty crooked. Now, I don't mind it having a little bit of crookedness, but this is something I'm going to fix when I take the neck off. Look how close the low E is here. And the problem is it gets worse as it goes up the fingerboard. So I don't mind if it comes in, but this one is actually coming in from the nut. So the nut is up here, and as we work our way down the fingerboard, it actually gets worse and worse and worse and worse to this point where, I mean, it's really super close, and it's way in over here. I don't mind that to a degree, to an extent. That's a little extreme, and I'm going to go ahead and correct that and balance out this fingerboard a little bit better when I take the neck off. The strings ought to be scooted over, like about right there. So I'll be able to take care of that. So, you know, all of this just goes to show you how hard it is to buy a used guitar and have it come out right. You know, I've done a ton of videos here. I've done these evaluations, and I find just all kinds of issues here. Maybe it's because I'm too picky. You know, maybe somebody would play this guitar and go, oh, that's fantastic, best guitar I've ever played. But because I have played so many perfectly set up guitars, it's just like, oh man, you know, I've never seen a guitar that I don't adjust or tweak in some way. I'm trying to think. I'm thinking really hard if there's ever a guitar that I haven't done some sort of action tweak. At least the action. I can't think of one. Well, yeah, I can. The 19... No, I've changed the net on that one. So let's see. I've got a 40. I've got a 39. I adjust action on all the authentics. And I complain on every one of the authentics that the action is too high and there's not enough saddle left by the time you get done. I've adjusted the action on every single authentic. On my custom shop Bluegrass 16, I reset the neck, and I cut a long saddle, so I put my own saddle in there, but I reset the neck on that one. The 1940 D18, which came from a really good player, and, you know, he was probably perfectly happy. I couldn't stand the nut. I changed the nut out, and it just transformed the guitar for me. The 42 had frets like this, and I refretted it. Made a new nut for that one too. Made it really good. The other 1945, the other 1945 that we have, the Sitka Ebony, I've not done anything to that, but it needs frets, and so I'm going to get to the frets. It's a little more playable than this. It's got a little bit more fret than this. Done that one. The 38 that came in, the bridge has been shaved, so boom, that's out, you know. that was a problem that had to be fixed. Of course, my 270s D18s, my 70s D18, my D28, complete overhauls on those. Callings that I used to have, did I do anything to the callings? I think I adjusted the saddle. Evened it out a little bit more. I think it was really high on the bass side. I don't remember. If that's one guitar that got away from any kind of changes or modifications, straight out of the box, plain gray, it might have been that Collings. Sure might have been, you know. But point is, man, when you get a guitar like this, I think you just better be prepared to do something to it to get it to where you want it, because they've got problems. least they do, you know, in my opinion. I'm picky. That's why people send me guitars. All right, let's go inside and play them. What we look at, we'll look inside these guitars, and you can go back and review these if you need to, but look at the degree of taper on the braces. They're a little bit different, even though they're all from 1945 and everything. You know, you got 4 sets of specs here. I mean, you've got the top woods, you've got the ebony, the truss rod type, and you've got some differences in those tapers, and some of them go really tapered. Some of them are like almost straight braced. You just never know what you're going to get. I don't think there's a standard as far as the tapering goes. I really don't. Let's play these 3 1945 D45s. I'm going to do my standard A, B, C comparison, but I'm not going to do all of it. I'm just going to do the G chords and then the lick, and then the cross picking things. So 3 things. You're going to get an idea of what's going on. We are going to start with the Sitka T-bar first. Sitka T-bar. And then we're going to do the Sitka Ebony bar. So you can compare T-bar versus Ebony bar. Then we're going to do the Red Spruce Ebony bar so that you can compare Sitka versus Red Spruce. They both have Ebony bars. And that way we're going to have the biggest extremes, I think. We'll see what we think. But I think that will be the best way to do these things. And again, I'm using my 2 mic setup here that I started using. 2 of these guitars are not set up yet. Like I said in the evaluation, this one has a little bit too high of an action, a little bit too much neck relief, so they're not none of them are really super comfortable. The most comfortable one for me is the one on the wall back here, the Sitka Ebony. And it's pretty good. It needs new frets, but the playability on it is pretty good. So it's the most comfortable one. So kind of keep that in mind. That's why I'm going to keep the comparison simple. I've got to do something that I can actually play. So, all right, let's get going. What do I think about playing them? Definitely there's some differences here. And let's start with the with this one, with the Sitka T. The Sitka T bar. It had, to me, sitting here playing it, the warmest sound of the bunch. And I'm doing this real-time ABC. So I'm playing one, setting it down, picking up another one, and going through the cycle that way. When I switched from Sitka T to Sitka Ebony, the Ebony had a lot more clarity to it, snap. It's got some sort of something going on there. I've heard this in the 1940 D18 versus the 42 D18. The 1940 has a T-bar, the 1942 has an Ebony bar. Otherwise, they should be identical. They're fully scalloped, everything. The difference is in the Ebony truss rod. And that 42 has just got this musicality to it. It's got some sort of clarity, some sort of upper end to it. And the T-bar in that case also has a richer, which is not a bad thing, a richer kind of meatier sound to it. I hear the same sort of thing when I'm switching between these two. Yeah, I like the Ebony truss rod a little bit better. Not that there's anything wrong with this one at all, but when I switched back to that, I heard a little bit more clarity. Let me see if I can point it out to you. Look, I think the mid-range, but I'm here again. It's just a strum. upper end there. Now listen to the mid-range thing. Deeper, you know, it didn't quite have that bang to it. This is a good guitar, though. I mean, this is really good. But I also think that this one, the Ebony Truss Rod on this one, this guitar plays good. This guitar has a really good action. The neck relief was really good. Everything was good about this guitar. It needs new frets. That's it. And so this one just plays good for me. This is the lightest of the bunch, too. I wrote the specs down over there. This one is 1740, 1,740 grams. The Sitka T is 1840, 1,840. It's 100 grams heavier than this one, which is still pretty light, still 18. Most of my D18's weigh about 2,000. And then the red spruce Ebony, surprisingly, is the heaviest of the bunch at 1870, 1,870 grams. This is the heaviest guitar of the bunch. And you feel it. I'm not sure where the weight is, but I feel this one being just a little heavier. Now, when I picked this one up, you had, if you had the guitar, first guitar, the Sitka T was here. And then on the brightness scale, the Sitka Ebony would be here. And the red spruce Ebony is another. So my opinion of the sound and all that sort of thing is a little bit influenced by the way they're playing right now. None of them are set up 100% yet. This Sitka Ebony is probably the best setup, and I've been playing it for a couple of weeks, so I'm most comfortable with it. I like it a lot. But I think if there was one I was going to take, it would in fact be the red spruce top. It does have, the upper end clarity. Get this guitar set up really good, and I think this is going to be my favorite. And I think we're going to step down the line in the opposite order that I recorded them. So this is going to be probably my favorite. And the next one is going to be the Sitka with the Ebony. And then the last one is going to be the Sitka with the T-bar. And I feel terrible calling it third because it is one, it is a good guitar. I mean, it is a good guitar. If you handed me the Sitka T and said, well, if it was at Winfield and I was the third place winner and the guitar that was left was the Sitka T, I'm happy, Neck-wise, again, I think that influences me a little bit because I think this one, the red spruce, has got, like I said in the evaluation, a little bit more V to it. And this neck is just a little bit more comfortable than all the other necks, and especially when I get some frets on it. I think this is going to be the winner as far as the neck feels. And the Sitka T has a little bit more of a roundness to it, which I don't feel so much now. But when I was playing it, I thought it's just maybe just slightly the less comfortable of the three. I'm really super nitpicking here. So one last thing to look at on these three guitars that I forgot to mention in the evaluation is the binding. So this one is the Sitka T, and if you look at the binding on it, it's got tortoise on both sides. So both sides here are tortoise plastic binding. When we get to the red spruce, it's also got tortoise on both sides. Tortoise on both sides. But when we get to the red spruce Ebony, which was the first one that I evaluated, it has mahogany. Or it's got wood binding on this side, and it's got tortoise binding on this side. When I first evaluated this guitar and I noticed that, I thought, maybe the binding's been replaced. Maybe the back's been off of it. And that would explain some things on the inside, because I think the bridge plate was replaced on this one. So maybe they took that off. But the finish job was so good. I said, man, if they took the back off of this, they did an outstanding job. And then it came to my attention that at some point, Martin actually did use wood bindings for the back of these things. Then it's like, man, there's another rabbit hole to go down on these 1945 D18's. So much variability. So, gosh. All right, I got to get to work. I got to get this done. What a fascinating opportunity this has been to compare 3 guitars of the same year with all these different specs. That's an amazing thing. And anyway, we've got to thank the person that sends me these guitars to do this with, because I can't think of anybody other than Gruen or Carter vintage, or some collectors might, but to have these 3 of the same vintage with the different specs is an incredibly rare opportunity. So, all right, see you later.